Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning, everybody.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Namaskar.
Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya
Madhyamam
Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvijavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so we had finished the fourth section on the last class. Today we are starting the fifth Khandaha, Panchama Khandaha. We will look at this section. It has 5 mantras. So please unmute yourself and we will chant. Mantra number 1. Ata khalu ya uditaha
अथ खलु य
खलूय उदितः
sapranavo yah pranavaha
सप्रणवो यः प्रणवः
sauditha ityasau va aditya
उद्गीत
उदितः
इत्यसौ वा
इत्यर्थो
इत्यः
वा आदित्य
udgita esha pranavaha
उद्गीत
उद्गीत
उदित
एष
एष
प्रणवः
प्रणवः
omiti hesha swaranneti
ओमिति
ओमिति हेष स्वरन्नेति
etum uve etumu evaham
एतमो
एतमु
एवाहम्
abhyagashisham
अभगासिषम्
अभ्यासिषम्
asman mama tumekositi
तस्मान्
तस्मान्
मम
मम त्वें
त्वमेकोऽसीति
akaushitaki putramuvacha
ह कौशीत
कौशीतकिः पुत्रमुवाच
रश्मिस्त्वं पर्यावर्तयात्
रश्मिस्त्वं
रश्मित्वं पर्यावर्तयात्
बहवो वै ते भविष्यन्ति
बहवो वै
वैते
भविष्यन्ति
भविष्यन्ति
इत्यधिदैवतम्
इत्यधिदैवतम्
दैवतम्
तथा अध्यात्मम्
अथाध्यात्मम्
आध्यात्मम्
य एवायं मुख्यप्राणः
य
य
एवायं
एवायं
प्राणः
प्राणः
समुद्गीतम् उपासीत
तमुत्थितमुपासीत
समुत्थितमुपासीत
ओमिति हेष स्वरन्नेति
ओमिति
ओमिति येष स्वरन्नेति
एतमु एवाहम्
एतम् एवाहम्
अभ्यागसशम्
अभ्यागशितम्
तस्मान् मम त्वमेकोऽसीतीह
तस्मान्मम
मम
त्वमेकोऽसीति
त्वेको मेऽसि
कौशीतकी पुत्रमुवाच
कौशीतकीपुत्रमुवाच
कौशीतपुत्रमुवाच
प्राणात्वम्
प्राणात्वम्
प्राणात्मम्
भूमानम् अभिगायत बहवो वै मे
भूमानाभिगायत
गायत
बहवो
वै मे
भविष्यन्तीति
भविष्यन्ति
भविष्यन्तीति
अथ खलु ये उद्गीतः
अथ खलु
अथ खलु य उद्गीतः
सप्रणवो यः प्रणवः
सप्रणवो यः
प्रणवो यः प्रणवः
स उद्गीत इति
स
स उद्गीत इति
कीदृशधनाद्वहैवापि
द्वये
दुर्गीतम् अनुसमाहरति
दुर्गीतमनुसमाहरति
इति अनुसमाहरति इति
इति
इति अनुसमाहरति
okay, so in this khanda there are three upasanas and they are from different standpoints. One is from the standpoint of Aditya, the second is from the standpoint of Pranaha, and the third one is Udgita Prana Aikya Upasana. the oneness between the two of Udgitam and Prana. Now, if you remember, we have already seen this first two upasanas, the Aditya upasana and the Prana upasana. We have already seen in the last section, but the presentation is different here. What is the difference? Earlier, Aditya was taken as Ekam, one Aditya. But here, Aditya is seen as Bahu Rashmayaha, many rays of the sun. Right? So multiple rays of the sun is Aditya over here. And this is a dialogue between Kaushitaki and his son, where Kaushitaki is telling his son what are the benefits. So he says that I did Aditya Upasanam and therefore I have one son. Look at the logic. Aditya in the last Khanda was one, single Aditya. So he did Aditya Upasanam on that one Aditya. Therefore he got one Putraha. And he tells his son that if you want more Putras, if you want more sons, then you have to meditate on this Aditya in multiple forms, which is Bahu Rashmaya Drishtya Udgita Upasana. Aditya has many rays if you meditate. Since there are multiple rays, you will have multiple suns. And this is the Adi Daiva Upasana. That is the first Upasana. The second one is Prana Upasana. The first one is Adi Daiva Upasana. Why?
Because Aditya is Adidaivi.
Aditya is a Devata, and even if it is Aditya with many rays, Bahu Rashmayaha, it is still a Devata. Therefore, the first Upasana is Adi Daiva Upasana. The second one is Prana Upasana. And what is that?
Adhatma.
It is Adhyatma Upasana. Because Prana is centered on oneself. And in this Upasana, Prana has four functions. Therefore, this Upasana has Panchavritti Rupa Prana. Prana with five functions. And therefore, Kaushitaki says to his son that I did Prana Upasana and I got one son. But if you invoke the same prana as Panchavritti Prana, five functions of prana, you will get more children. So this is the second upasana. This is Adi Adhyatma Upasana because it is centered on the prana on oneself. Okay, even if there are five functions of prana, all the five functions are centered on oneself. Now the third upasana is Udgita Pranavaha Aikya Upasana. Note the name. Udgita Pranavaha Aikya Upasana. Now Udgita is what? Omkara occurring in Samaveda. And when the same Omkara occurs in Rigveda, it is called Pranavaha. Right? Omkara of other ways are Pranavaha. And in this particular mantra, the Pranavaha is the Omkara occurring in Rigveda. And the Rigveda chanting is by the Rigveda priest. We have seen this before. What is the name given to the Rigveda priest? Anybody remembers?
Is it Adhvaryu?
No. This is Hota. The Rigveda priest is Hota. Okay. Now, what is the name given to the Samaveda priest? So, he is called the Udgata.
Udgat.
Right? We have seen this before also. And therefore, remember that Omkara is uttered by the Hota, chanted by the Hota. While when it is, so if it is Pranavaha, it is being uttered by the Hota. While if you are naming it Udgitaha, it is being uttered by the Udgata. And the Upasana is Udgita Pranava Aikya Upasana. Right? This is the oneness between the Omkara of Samaveda, called the Udgitaha, and the Omkara of Rigveda, called the Pranavaha. Since there is oneness, the meditation is upon that oneness. And this has to be performed by the Udgata, the Samameda priest, as part of a ritual. Right? And that is important. Part of a ritual. It's called a karma anga upasana. It's not a angi upasana. Angi upasanas are independent upasanas. Anga upasanas are part of a upasana. Remember that anga upasanas do not have any independent fruits. They derive their fruits from the angi upasana only. But what is the role then of the anga upasana? Upasanas enhance the efficiency, the efficacy of the angi upasana. And here there is an advantage. Even if the Udgata chants incorrectly, because there is a hota also over there. So even if the Udgata chants incorrectly, that is why the mantra says Dur Udgitam, incorrect pronunciation of the Udgitam. That can be compensated by the Rigveda priest, the hota, if he performs correctly. This is the simple meaning of that mantra. With this, the fifth khanda is over. Okay. Then we go to the Shashta Khanda, the sixth one. This khanda has six mantras. So we will chant. Please unmute yourself. Iyame varga agnihi sama.
Iyame
Vargagini
Tadetat etasyam rachi adhyulam.
Tadevatyam Chadyudam
Tadevatyudam
Tadetat etasyam rachi adhyulam sama.
Tadetatasyan Chadyudasama
Tasmat rachi adhyulam sama.
Tasmad
Tasmadrityudam sama
Giyata iyameva.
Giyata
Gita Iyameva
Sa agnilamastat sama.
Sagniramastasama
Sagniramastasama
Next one. Antarikshame vargavayus sama.
Antarikshame
Antarikshame
Bhagavayusama
Tadetat etasyam richi adhyulam sama.
Tadevatyudam
Sama
Tasmat richi adhyulam sama.
Tasmadrityudam Sama
Yate antariksameva.
Iyate
Antarikshama
Vayur amahatat sama.
Savayurnumatasama
Third mantra. Thadyavre varge aditya sama.
Yaurevadityassama
Tadetat etasyam richi adhyulam sama.
Tadaitatadrichitatadyudasama
Tasmat richi adhyulam sama.
Tasmadrichi adhyudam sama
Giyate dhaure vasa adityo amattat sama.
Iyate naureva sadityo mastatsama
Nakshatranye varga chandrama sama.
Nakshatranye vargachandramasama
Tadetat etasyam richi adhyodam sama.
Tadetatyavricha adhyudam richasama
Tasmat richi adhyodam sama.
Tasmadrichi adhyudam sama
Giyate nakshatranye vasa chandrama amattat sama.
Giyate nakshatranye sa chandrama amastatsama
Giyate nakshatranye vasa chandrama amattat sama.
Giyate nakshatranye sa chandrama amatatsama
अथ एतद् आदित्यस्य शुक्लम्भाः
अथ यदित्यादित्यस्य शुक्लमं
तैवर्ग अथ यन्नीलं परः कृष्णं तत्साम
कृष्णं तत्साम
तदेतस्यां रुचि अध्योढं साम
तदेतस्यामृच्छध्युरसाम
तस्मात् रुचि अध्योढं साम गीयते
तस्मदृचि अध्युरसामनीयते
अथ यद् एव एतत् आदित्यस्य शुक्लम्भाः
अथ यदेतदेव आदित्यस्य शुक्लमः
सैव सा अथ यन्नीलं परः कृष्णम्
साथ यन्नीलपरः कृष्णम्
तदमः तत्साम
तदं तत्साम
It's not Sam, okay? Sam is Hindi. Tatsam.
तत्साम
Okay, this mantra, the sixth one is not over, but we will take it up to here. Okay, and as we go through, you'll realize why. So, the Anga Upasanas we saw in the last section. Now you are going to get the Angi Upasana, the main Upasana, the Angi Upasana, plus the five Anga Upasanani, that is the subsidiary rituals you're going to get. Again, I will remind you, Anga Upasanani, the Karmangani Upasanas do not give independent phalam. They just enhance the efficacy, the phalam of the Angi, the main Upasana. Okay, now this main Upasana here is Ishvara Upasana on a Ishvara with Vishishta Guna, with certain attributes. The Anga Upasanas, the multiple Anga Upasanas are given from mantra 1 to that line of mantra 6 where we stopped. Okay. And that's the reason why I stopped at that, because after that something else starts. So we have taken the first 5 mantras. These are all giving the Anga Upasanani, the Anga Upasanas. And this goes on up to the first part of mantra 6. Now, for this Upasana, 5 pairs of devatas are taken. Right? 5 pairs. Each is a pair. Okay, there are 5 pairs of devatas. And these devatas are Ashraya, Ashrayihi. That is, one is the supporting devata, and the other is the supported devata. So Ashrayaha, the Ashraya devata, the supporter devata, Ashrayi devata, the supported devata. And these 5 pairs of devatas, note the word pairs, okay, 5 pairs of devatas, they are to be invoked since there are 2 devatas. In each alambanam also, how many alambanam should be there? One devata is invoked, one alambanam. Now, since there is a pair of devatas, there has to be a pair of alambanams also. Okay. And therefore, along with the 5 pairs of devatas, you will find pairs of alambanams. Now look at the pairs of the devatas. The first one is Prithvi and Agni. Okay. The second one is Antariksham. So Antariksham is it is taken as interspace. Do you know what interspace means? In between
spaces.
In between the earth and the beginning of space, what is there?
What's the interface?
What is it called in English? Atmosphere. So the antariksham is basically, if you look at it from today's language, antariksham means the atmosphere and vayu. So you will see the connection. Prithvi, Agni. Antariksham, vayu. The third pair is Dhyav. Dhyav is basically Swarga, heaven. And Aditya. The fourth pair is Nakshatra and Chandramas. And the fifth pair, Shuklam Bhaha. We saw this in the mantra. Shuklam Bhaha is the bright color of the sun. Shuklam is basically bright or white. Shuklam Bhaha, the bright color of the sun. And Krishnam Neelam Bhaha, the dark blue color of the sun. Bhaha means color or the brightness. So Shuklam Bhaha, Krishnam Neelam. Krishnam Neelam is dark blue. Krishna means dark. So Krishnam Neelam, dark blue. And these are also pairs, so they cannot be separated from each other. Let's try to understand why. What does Agni need to burn?
Vayu.
Anybody else?
Fuel.
Wood, Acharya.
Wood, right. And Prithvi, therefore, is to be taken as wood, or the fuel itself. Prithvi here is the fuel. Agni is the fire. So which is the Ashraya and which is the Ashrayi?
Prithvi Ashraya.
Prithvi Ashraya, Agni is Ashraya. And therefore they cannot be separated from each other. The idea is they are taken as pairs because they should not be separated from each other. Agni needs that fuel to survive. Similarly, Antariksham is the Ashraya. The atmosphere is the Ashraya because the wind blows in the atmosphere, right? Beyond the atmosphere, Vayu is not there. The Ashraya of Vayu is Antariksham, inner space, interspace. Then Dhyav. Dhyav is the heavens or the sky, basically, is the Ashraya. And what is that which is in the sky, which takes the support of the sky? Aditya. Therefore, Dhyav is the Ashraya and Aditya is the Ashrayi. Similarly, Nakshatra and Chandrama. Now, how will you say which is the Ashraya and which is the Ashrayi? One is stars and one is moon. What do you think? Which is the Ashraya, which is the Ashrayi?
Moon can be seen only when stars are there. Only at night.
Very good. Moon can be seen only when stars are there. And therefore, which is the Ashrayi and which is the Ashraya? The Nakshatra is the Ashraya and Chandrama is the Ashrayi. Okay. Remember, the Chandrama is also called Nakshatra Adipati, king of the stars. The king is necessarily supported by his people. So these are the 5 pairs. What about the last one, the
Lambaha.
Shuklambaha and Krishna Nilambaha. Now this you have to understand. There are certain, how it works in the sun. Okay, this is not part of the or the Upanishad, but I had to do some reading to understand myself. Therefore, in the sun, there are very, very, very large concentrations of very strong magnetic fields. Okay. Now, this magnetic field, the strength is so strong that some of them block some of the energy from getting to the surface. And therefore, what happens in the sun, at some parts of the surface where the magnetic field has blocked the energy from getting through, the temperature is lower than the other parts of the surface. And science calls them what? Sunspots. When you see a photograph of the sun, you will see that in a bright sun, there appear to be some dark spot. The dark spot actually means that because of the strong magnetic field, the energy has been blocked from getting there. So it's a lower temperature, and therefore the that spot appears darker. Now that dark spot is sustained by what? It is sustained by the white spot, where there is larger magnetic field. Okay, so that is the Ashraya relationships. Okay. Now let's look at the pair of alambanams. The first pair of alambanam is the Rig Veda and Samaveda. How are the Rig Veda and Samaveda connected? All the mantras of the Samaveda, they are from the Rig Veda alone. So which is the Ashraya? Which is the Ashrayi?
Rik is the
Rigveda
Ashraya
is
and
the
Samaveda is the
Ashraya,
Ashraya.
Rig Veda is
Samaveda Ashraya.
Ashraya and Samaveda is Ashrayi. Right? So the first upasana is what? You should invoke Prithvi on Rig Veda and Agni on Samaveda. The first pair of devatas, Prithvi and Agni, are to be invoked on Rig Veda and Samaveda respectively. Similarly, in the second upasana, Antariksham is to be invoked on Rig Veda and Vayu on Samaveda. In the third upasana, Dhyav on Rig Veda and Aditya on Samaveda. Remember that the alambanams are not changing. Only the devatas are changing. Okay, so far and so on. Okay, now there is a second type of alambanam. This is the first set. 5 devatas, 2 alambanams each. 5 pairs of devatas, 2 alambanams each. There is a second type of alambanam. If you look at the mantra, it says Samaha Sa Ama. Okay. So mantra is saying that the word Sama is a mixture, is a combination of Sa and Ama. And only when these two words are joined can the word Sama exist. And therefore Sa and Ama are one pair, inseparable pair. And these are the second pair of alambanams. The first alambanam was what? Rig Veda and Samaveda. Right. Here it is Sa and Ama. Right. So the first upasana, we should invoke Prithvi on Sa, Agni on Ama. Similarly, Antariksham on Sa, Vayu on Ama. In the third upasana, we should invoke Dhyav on Sa and Aditya on Amaha and so on. So the 5 pairs of devatas are meditated upon. These 2 pairs of alambanams, these form the Anga Upasana. Okay, as you can see, we are not going into the words as we agreed. We are chanting it so that at least we should know what it sounds like. But I'm giving you the running meat. This is up to the first half of the 6th mantra. Now, why we stopped there was from the second half of the 6th mantra, the Angi Upasana starts. And that's why I didn't include it in the first part. Now, Angi Upasana, the mantras are from the second half of the 6th mantra up to the 8th mantra. Okay. So please unmute yourself. We will try to chant. Remember that it doesn't matter if you make a little bit mistake in chanting. They say that when you are chanting for the purpose of worldly benefits, then the chanting should be absolutely correct. Because wrongly chanted mantras when it is for your own benefit, worldly benefits, they can, at the least, they can give no result. They might even give adverse results. Therefore, when you are chanting mantras for personal benefit or for worldly benefits of phalam, worldly phalam, the mantra is supposed to be absolutely correctly chanted. But what are we doing here? What is the purpose of this chanting for us?
Chitta Shuddhi.
Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Yoga. And therefore, even if you chant incorrectly, it doesn't matter. So please chant. That's my point. Okay. I'm not saying you should chant wrongly. Okay. That is not what I'm saying. If you make a mistake in chanting, don't let it bother you. Okay. Right. Mantra number 6, the second part. अथय एषो वन्तरादित्ये हिरण्मयः
अथ
अतः एषु
एष अन्तरादित्ये हिरण्मयः
पुरुषो दृश्यते
पुरुषो दृश्यते
दृश्यते
हिरण्यश्चमाश्रुः
हिरण्यश्मश्रुः
हिरण्यकेशः
हिरण्यकेशः
केश
आपरणखात् सर्व
आपणखात् सर्व
एव सुवर्णः
एव स्वर्णः
तस्य यथा कप्यासं पुण्डरीकम्
तस्य यथा कप्यं पुण्डरीकम्
एवम् अक्षनी तस्य उदीति
तस्योदिति
तामस एष सर्वेभ्यः
नामस
नामस
एष
एष
सर्वेभ्यः
सर्वेभ्यः
पाप्म्यभ्यः
पाप्मभ्यः
उदित
उदित उदेति ह वै सर्वेभ्यः
उदित उदेतिह
उदेतिः
वै
वै सर्वेभ्यः
पाप्म्यभ्यः एवं वेद
पाप्मभ्यः य एवं वेद
वेद
तस्य ऋक्चसामः
तस्य ऋक्सामः
चकेष्णौ तस्मात् उद्गीतः
विष्णु तस्मात्
कृष्णौ तस्मादुदितः
तस्मात् त्वेव उद्गाता एतस्य हि गाता
तस्मात्
तस्य
उदात्तस्य
हि गाता
गाता
स एष ये च अमुष्मात्
स एष
एष ये
एष
चमुष्मात्
चमुष्मात्
पराञ्चो लोकाः
पराञ्चो लोकः
तेषां च इष्टे देवकामानां
तेषां चेष्टे देवकामानां
देवकामानां
च इत्यधिदैवतम्
चेदित्यधिदैवतम्
चेदित्यधिदैवतम्
Okay, so this is the Angi Upasana. This is Upasana, which is Ishvara Guna Vishishta Upasana, which means it's a Upasana on Ishvara who has been, and some gunas you are invoking. And this is a very, very famous Upasana in Shastram. Ishvara Guna Vishishta Upasana. So this was done very regularly in Vedic times. Of course, now most of it is not done. People prefer to do upasanas from the Puranas and Itihasas. But this is a famous Vedic upasana. And in fact, when we study Brahma Sutra, you will find that this upasana is very, very elaborately analyzed in Brahma Sutra also. So even Vyasacharya thought that these upasanas are very, very important. Why Ishvara upasana? When you say Ishvara upasana, it means Saguna Ishvara. Obviously, because Nirguna Brahma is not available for upasana. Why?
Because it's nirguna, so no gunas are there. How to
No
invoke?
gunas. How can you make it an object of meditation? Therefore, Nirguna Upasana is not possible on Brahman. Right? Nirguna Brahma Upasana is not possible. And therefore, whenever we say Ishvara Upasana, remember it is not Nirguna Ishvara, it is Saguna Ishvara always, Saguna Brahman. And here also, when you talk about Ishvara Upasana, Saguna Ishvara Upasana, there are two types of upasanas in general. One is called Devata Upasana and one is called Ishvara Upasana. What is Devata Upasana? On the other Devatas. Who is Ishvara in relation to the Devatas?
The
Devatas are specific qualities of Ishvara. Ishvara is wholesome and Devatas are different
That is not the
aspects.
correct understanding.
Ishwar is the superior.
Okay. But what is a Devata? How, for example, you have done Kenap, you have done Katha Upanishad, you're doing part of it, right? How does Yamaraj become a Devata? He says how he became one. How did Yamaraj become Devata?
It is a position which is
How did
allocated to
Yamaraj
him.
become Devata?
Because it's a post. Exalted punyam.
Yeah,
Salted Punyam.
depending on that.
Okay. And he did Nachiketa Homam. You've forgotten all that. He did Nachiketa Homam, and because of that, he came to Swarga, and he got because of his extra punyam, he got the position of Yamaraj. Okay. So Devatas are Utkrishta Jiva Eva Devata. Exalted Jivas, Utkrishtaha, superior or exalted Jivas are Devatas. Therefore, a Devata is also a Jiva. Right? Yamaraj is a Jiva, Indra is a Jiva, Saraswati is a Jiva. Why worship a Jiva? Why should I, who myself am a Jiva, why should I worship a Devata who's also a Jiva?
If you want certain benefits from them that we currently are desiring for.
Okay. So remember that Devata is superior to you or inferior to you?
Superior, Utkrishta. That is
superior.
Krishna. And therefore you worship a person who is superior to you. He need not be Ishvara. For example, many people worship their role models. Have you seen people have gone crazy with about Salman Khan with the open shirt? Not nowadays. Many years ago, Salman Khan used to walk out with the open shirt, right? He hardly exalted Jiva, but people worship him, right? So people worship role models. And therefore, what is wrong with worshipping a Jiva who is also a role model because he did a lot of punyam. And therefore, Jiva becomes Devata because of karma and upasana. Specific karma, specific upasana. Lots of punyam is generated, so it's an exalted Jiva. But remember, Devata is also samsari. Devata is not a Jivan Mukta. He is samsari. And therefore, he can be liberated in the same manner as a Jiva through jnanam only. On the other hand, Ishvara is not a samsari. He is Maya Sahita Brahman. Right? That is the first and second difference. Third is Devatas also have a form, much more powerful than any Jiva like us, but also with limited form. Ishvara, on the other hand, is all pervading. Devatas have much more knowledge than ordinary Jiva, but they are also limited in knowledge. Ishvara is Sarvagnya. Devatas have much more Chitta Shuddhi than Jivas. But Ishvara does not need Chitta Shuddhi at all. So if you read the Puranas and the Itihasas and all, you will find that very many upasanas are there which deal with Devatas. But here the topic is not Devata Upasana, it is Ishvara. Ishvara Upasana. Ishvara is Maya Vishishta Brahman. Brahman with the Maya Upadhi. What is the form of Maya? What form does Maya have? Come on, all advanced Vedantins. Nobody?
Vishwarupa.
No. Maya has no form. Vishwarupa is a Maya, form taken. Vyakta Maya in the form is Vishwarupa. Avyakta Maya is formless. Brahman also is formless. And therefore Ishvara, Maya Vishishta Brahman, Maya Sahita Brahman is also formless because both are formless. Maya is formless and Brahman is formless. The difference is that all the forms are contained in Maya. Right? Maya is avyaktam and contains all names and forms, but has no form of its own. Therefore, it is formless. Brahman is formless. Therefore, Ishvara cannot be said to have a form. And that which has no form is all pervading. It can have no limitations. All limitations belong where? To the upadhi only. And therefore, Ishvara is omniscient and omniscient, sarvagnaha, and omnipotent, sarva shaktiman. Now the point is, if Ishvara is formless, as you say, and Nirvana Brahman is also formless, how can I do upasana on Ishvara? Because we said we can't do upasana on Nirguna Brahman because it's formless. Now we are saying Ishvara is also formless. How can upasana be done on that formless Ishvara? There are two ways. One is that you attribute certain gunas to Ishvara. Right? This devatas, remember, note that devatas also have form. But since the form of the devata has been given by the karma, the form of devata is generated by his karma. So that devata is restricted to that form. However, Ishvara, not having this restriction, can have any number of forms. Okay. Now, again, when you are going to attribute a certain form or a guna to Ishvara for the purpose of upasana, remember that you are not supposed to think of any form from your head because because upasana is involved, and the word devata himself, Ishvara himself, is known to you from where? From only the Shastra. And this upasana is being prescribed by Shastra. Shastra will therefore prescribe the form that you should meditate upon. This is called Vishishta Guna Sampanna Ishvara. Those specific gunas prescribed by Shastra, which you can invoke upon Ishvara. That is the first method. Right? You can invoke those attributes and then meditate upon that Ishvara. Now, you might think that this is all pure imagination. Right? So, Shankara in his commentary adds a very important note. He says, don't think that this is imagination alone. Because there are any number of examples in the Itihasas and Puranas where the person who is meditating upon a particular form of Ishvara, that form has appeared before him to bless him. Right? We know that. And therefore he says, Shankara says that, remember that Ishvara has all forms in him. So whichever form that you are invoking, that you are meditating upon, while worshipping Ishvara, if your worship is pure enough, Ishvara will actually take that form to bless you. And therefore you can actually see that form. And Ishvara makes Shankara makes a very, very interesting point. Remember, these forms are avatars. So avatara is not necessarily a form by birth, like Krishna or Rama. He says even that materialized form which Ishvara takes to bless you, and even though the form is for a very, very limited period, only such time as he says tathastu. You ask for something and he says tathastu. Only for that limited period, that form is taken by Ishvara, but it is avatar. A very interesting point, okay? You must remember. You don't find this kind of discussion anywhere else. So that is the first form of the meditation. You attribute certain gunas to Ishvara and then you invoke. The second meditation is pratika upasana. That formless Ishvara can be invoked onto a form and we can meditate. So Shiva Linga is a form. You can invoke Shiva on that. Saligramam is a form. You can invoke whom on that?
Vishnu.
Vishnu.
Shiva.
Vishnu.
No,
Correct.
Shiva.
Saligramam. Not Shiva. Okay, Shiva is a Shiva Linga and Vishnu is a Saligramam. Omkara is also a pratik, also a form. And you can invoke on Omkara also. So here what we are seeing is the first type. Vishishta Guna Sampanna Ishvara. Not Pratika Upasana. Pratika Upasana, you are invoking onto a particular alambana, right? On a particular form, like Shivalanga, Saligram. But on the other one, what are you doing? You are invoking attribute on Ishvara, right? The only thing is that first you have to invoke Ishvara and then you have to invoke the attribute, the gunas. And to invoke Ishvara, you will need a location. This location is called the sthanam. Sthanam is literally place, location. And on this location, you have to invoke Ishvara. And on that Ishvara, you have to you have to attribute the gunas, and then you will meditate. Right? So in this section, you will see that the sthanam, the locus where Ishvara is to be invoked, is the Surya Mandalam, solar disk, not Surya Devata, Surya Mandalam, the physical solar disk. And this, therefore, this upasana is therefore Adi Daiva Upasana. And in the next section, you will see that the location is going to be the Dakshina Akshi, the right eye. And therefore, is it going to be Adhyatma or Adidaivam? It is going to be Adhyatma Upasana.
Adhyatma.
Right. On the solar disk, on the Surya Mandalam, it is Adi Daiva Upasana. When the locus of invocation is Dakshina Akshi, the right eye, it is Adhyatma Upasana. And in this Upasana, which Upasana? On the Surya Mandalam, there are six gunas are attributed. This is Adi Daiva Upasana. 6 gunas are attributed. The first one is Hiranyamaya. So Hiranyamaya is a gold colored Ishvara. The hair on his face is gold. The hair on his head is gold. The mustache is gold. The beard is gold. The whole body is gold. And therefore, Hiranyamaya Ashruhu and Hiranya Kesha. Remember, he is being invoked. He is being located in the Surya Mandalam, which is golden in color with bright sunlight. And therefore, he is golden colored. So that is the first guna, Hiranmaya. Then the second is Kapyasam Pundarikam Evam Akshini. That's also there is a mantra. Kapyasam Pundarikam Evam Akshini. Right? So Pundarikam is lotus. Akshini is the eyes. Now comes the controversial portion. Kapyasam. Kapyasam is Kapi Asaha. Kapi is what?
Monkey.
Kapi is monkey. Asaha is the gluteal region of your body. In short, the butt. Right? So you can look at what it says. Kapyasam pundarikam eva makshanihi. His eyes are colored like the monkey's butt. Actually, it says eyes are colored by the lotus. That's a very important idea over here. Eyes are colored by the lotus, and the color of the lotus is like the color of the monkey's butt. Okay. Now, if you see the sub-commentators, on this particular guna alone, people have gone crazy writing commentaries. So I'll give you one small example. There are many sub-commentators who say Shankara is being disrespectful because he's comparing Ishvara with a monkey's backside. Right? Very lowly comparison, almost insulting. Then there are other commentators who say that look at what Shankara said. Shankara said, Kapyasam Pundarikam Evam Akshani. Ishvara's eyes are like the lotus. And it is the lotus color which is being compared to the monkey's backside. You are not comparing Ishvara with the monkey's butt. You are comparing the color of the lotus. Therefore, they say there is no insult, there is no lowly comparison, and Shankara is right. So this is a sort of discussion which goes on. Okay, plenty of them are there. Anyway, then the third guna is Ud iti nama. Ud means transcending all papaps. Then the fourth one is Rik Chasama Geshnav. So what's a Geshnaha? If you look at a bamboo stick, you will find that there are small rings, a long stick with small rings, something slightly coming out of the stick. Those rings, there will be many rings, and the space between the two knots, the two rings, that is called Geshnaha. And by extension, therefore, it's a part, because the bamboo is divided to various parts by these rings, and each part is a Geshnaha. The space between the two rings is a Geshnaha, so each part. So by extension, the meaning of Geshnaha is part. Therefore, Rik Sama Geshnaha means Rik and Sama are parts, portions of Ishvara. So this is the fourth attribute. Ishvara having Rik and Sama as parts. Right? Now, if you look at the Anga Upasana which we saw, we invoked 5 pairs of Devatas, 10 Devatas on Rig and Sama. Therefore, the final meaning is what? Richa Sama Geshnav, all those Devatas whom we invoked in the last mantra are also parts of Ishvara. In other words, the entire creation is part of Ishvara. Then the fifth guna is Udgitatvam. Ishvara himself is called Udgita. Why? Udgita is highly glorified, highly worshipped. And the Ishvara is also highly worshipped. Therefore, he is Udgita. In the sixth mantra, in the sixth guna, you will find that it says Urdhvam Loka Kama Ishatvam. Urdhvam Loka is upper world. Kama is desires. Ishatvam is lordship or overlordship. Therefore, Ishvara is the lord of all the upper lokas and the upper loka desires. Actually, Urdhvam Loka Kamam Ishatvam is the lord of all the desires of the upper world, which of course means he is the lord of the upper lokas also. Right? So such a Ishvara with six gunas, with these 6 gunas, you have to invoke the Ishvara on Surya Mandalam. First you invoke the Ishvara on Surya Mandalam, then you invoke or attribute these 6 gunas to Ishvara, and then you meditate. What is the phalam? Washing off of all the papam and attainment of Urdhva Loka. Urdhva Loka Praptihi. That is the phalam. With this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Om Purnamadav Vidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya. Thank you, Acharya ji.
Thank you.